and then we'll do some introductions. Dr. Robbie?
Yeah, hi, my name is Kari Ravi. I'm a family practice and addiction medicine physician here at NACC. I've been here at NACC for 11 years, and I lead up the MAT team and participate in NACC.
Michelle.
Hi, I'm Michelle Corcoran. I am a public health nurse and I manage the MAT MOUD program here at NACC.
Tina.
My name is Tina Monnier. I am the harm reduction supervisor here at NACC.
And Nikki.
I'm Nikki Jardina, and excuse me, I'm the infectious disease RN at NACC.
And I'm Lindsay King-Cooney. I'm the community and tribal engagement specialist here at NACC. So welcome everybody. I'm gonna share my screen and we'll do some announcements to start. So welcome to the Midwest Tribal Echo. Today we have Briana Matrious. She's the Tribal Community Facilitator at the University of Minnesota, and she's going to be talking to us about her Healing Through History program. Oh, I'm sorry. You know what? Let's go back. I'm sorry, Renee, could you introduce yourself? Sorry about that.
That's no problem. Renee Bolio Banks, Indigenous, Shaganashimang, Zibikwe Indigenous Indigo, Jagasqua, Jamaica, Gandunjaba, Migisin, and Dudane. So I am Renee Bolio Banks, that's my birth name, and my spirit name is River Woman. I'm from Leech Lake, and I am the Eagle Clan. I've been at NACC for about 4 years, and I absolutely love it. So thank you. Thanks, Lindsay.
Thank you, Renee. Okay, so just a little bit about NACC as well. We're the Native American Community Clinic, and we were established in 2003 as an FQHC. We're located right in South Minneapolis in the heart of the urban Indigenous community. This is also a list of all the resources we have here at NACC, from primary care. We have our MOUD program, behavioral health, intensive outpatient treatment, harm reduction services, and traditional healing. This is a list of our open positions at NACC currently. So if you'd like to learn more about that, feel free to go to our website there at the bottom and click on the jobs tab, and you can learn more about these openings. Some guidelines, so please no protected health information. If you could mute yourself when you're not speaking. If you could turn on your cameras, we'd love to see your faces if you're feeling up to it. That would be amazing. And then if you could let us know who you are in the chat function, name, title, organization, and email, please. And then I can email you the post survey after the session. This is for June, our upcoming echoes. So June 7th will be our next echo, and that's going to be with Tina Monet and James Schmidt from NACC talking about harm reduction 101. And then June 21st, we have Linda Black Elk talking to us about traditional medicines. And then this is just promoting a conference coming up at the end of June. So from June 27th through the 29th, 7 Directions from the University of Washington is holding a conference at Mystic Lake Conference Center. And the ECHO team is going to be doing naloxone training there. And then this is a list of other echoes that we recommend. We have Stratus, who we partner with, Hennepin Healthcare, and Indian Country Echo has a lot of different topics. If you'd like any more information, feel free to email me on that. We do offer CE credits. So if it's important, if you could give me your email address in the chat, I can email out the post survey to receive those credits. And then finally, case presentations, if you have one to present, if you could let me know, and it's always good for learning and makes for great discussion. And I think that's all for me, so I will stop sharing and I will hand it over to Briana.
Great. All right, bonjour. Nawakamakukwe Indigenous Cause, Name Dudame, Ajamuk and Dun Jaba. And I just want to say hello, everyone. It's great to be in front of you today, in front of my brothers and sisters. And I just really appreciate coming into this space, being invited to be in this space and sort of share the work that I've been doing and what has been helpful for our communities. So again, my name is Briana Matrious. I'm a tribal community facilitator for the Center for Family Development under the University of Minnesota Extension. I am a part of the American Indian Resource and Resiliency team. And to sort of give a little background of this work, you know, we're going on like 6 years. It's been over 5 years, going on 6 years, doing this work in the communities. And what ended up taking place in the beginning was Extension ended up getting a grant to target the opioid crisis in Indian country. And there were also a few counties that were involved in it. So the two tribal communities that we are involved in is Mille Lacs Band, which is my own. I'm actually from Mille Lacs Band of Ojibwe. And then Boys Fort tribal community, which is located way up northern part of Minnesota. The other counties that are involved is Pine County, Itasca County, Northern St. Louis County, and Aiken County. And, you know, even though we are, you know, these locations are noted within our grant, we don't turn anybody down. We speak wherever, we do our work wherever and wherever it's needed. And in the beginning, they put together a team. And there were 4 of us on this team, but unfortunately, we are now down to just me. So I am the one and only kind of pushing this work forward. And I shouldn't say pushing this work forward because the other folks that were on our team are definitely doing the same work, but in a different capacity. And so yeah, so when they put this team together and, you know, we sort of, I think we all had our own thought process as far as what we believe the community needs. And of course, then it was going into the communities and really hearing and understanding and really putting this collective effort together to really truly see how this work was going to move forward. And at the time, I believe Susan Bolio had done a couple of ECHO trainings for your organization here, this ECHO series. And so Susan was a part of our team. And then we also had Solomon Trimble that was also a part of our team, and Jennifer Garbo. And Jennifer Garbo is actually still with Extension, but she has a new role. But, you know, the work that Susan brought into this space was about ACEs and understanding adverse childhood experiences and really helping community members to really understand those big foundational pieces as to some of the challenges that we face today. She also did mind-body medicine. So when we think about sort of going through this path of healing, she really brought the mindfulness piece, the really connecting back into the body piece to this work. Solomon, he did suicide prevention and youth work. And so again, that was sort of another piece that we brought in. And then the work that I do is around helping people to understand historical trauma and intergenerational trauma and how that shows up in our life every day. And again, with all of those pieces, you know, when we think about targeting the opioid crisis, you know, anywhere, we really had to think about where we wanted to go with this, right? Because we could have, you know, this was a new grant, this was new work, and, you know, we could establish harm reduction. And don't get me wrong, there's a big piece of this grant that is like harm reduction, or, you know, we could really invest it into treatment and all of that. But sort of when our folks got together, when this team was building, we really believed that, and still continue to believe, that in order to get to these symptoms, you know, the addictions, the PTSD, the depression, anxiety. Like, we have to be able to peel away at the onion and really get to the root cause. And when we think about what the root cause is, we know and understand that it is about historical trauma. It is about intergenerational trauma. It is about loss of culture, identity, the genocide that took place. All of that, like, that is at the root. And we wanted to do this work sort of in a different way. And that was sort of how our thought process was about how we can target the opioid crisis in these communities. And it's really about getting to the root cause of these issues. And so it has been a beautiful journey. It has been at times very exhausting, and I'm not familiar with a lot of you, but just sort of seeing your titles and knowing sort of where you're coming from in this work, like, you all know and understand how this work can be exhausting. And it's so necessary and it's needed. And as time goes on, and I just, even share just based on my experiences, like, the more that I'm out there talking about this stuff, the more events that we create, the more trauma-informed workshops and presentations and webinars, and really talking about trauma, the more work is sort of being created. The more people are waking up in our communities, the more that people in our communities are becoming sober and are in recovery. We have a lot of people going to ceremonies. I was just at our big drum ceremonies just east of Hinckley, Ajamuk, Lake Lena, and that was the most packed place I've ever seen. Like, it was beautiful to see how many people were there for ceremony. That has never been. And so the more that we are out there in the communities talking about these things and really talking about, the big pieces, these big foundational pieces, I mean, people are just waking up, and, and just, of course, seeing the, Lindsay, the postings that you have, right? So, like, it's just like, this work is a lot, and we're trying to keep up, and we need more people jumping on board and doing this work, and because it's so necessary. And again, the more that we're out there in the community talking about these things, the more people are understanding, and the more people are choosing to go down a path of healing. And that has been my experience doing this work in the communities. And I'm going to be completely honest with you all, and I'm sure you all have probably been there, but I'm getting tired. The exhaustion is sort of, it's really becoming, I'm really becoming aware of it. And it's a beautiful problem to have. So I'll share, I'll just leave it at that. And so, so what does healing through history mean? And again, I'll go back to the very beginning when, we sort of were trying to figure out what this work was really going to look like. And it was a lot of going out to the communities and information gathering, right? Building relationships. And I had already built a relationship with Pine County Health and Human Services before jumping on board with Extension. And so I already, I knew who to go to, within that sector. And Becky Foss, she's the director there, and her and I had some really great conversations in the very beginning. And to be completely honest with you, sort of the one of the big things that I know our community up there in that area is sort of dealing with is out-of-home placement with youth. And we need more foster care homes. And there's just not enough homes. Like, we just have a lot of children that are in need of homes, right? Foster care. And the other part of it is that within our tribe, we have a lot of turnover, right? Because this work is exhausting, right? The caseloads are a lot. What they deal with is is some really tough things. And so there's a lot of turnover. And so, just when you sort of make process with a case and with families, then, turnover happens, and then they have to sort of start all over and gain relationships back and all of that. So, I had asked her at the time, I said, we can't do anything about that. Like, that department over there is going to have to figure that out. But I said, what can we do? And I said, do you believe that a lot of your staff know and understand the history with Indigenous people within Minnesota? And, she was honest with me. She said, I think some do, but she said most of them don't. And I said, that's exactly where we start. And that is something that I know that I can do and that I can sort of control and that we can bring awareness to. So I ended up creating a workshop, a one-day workshop. And I share this too, because if folks are interested in learning more, understanding more, know that there is an 8-hour one-day workshop that I would be open to coming and teaching and presenting that to you all. So it's about understanding those foundational pieces of history that allow us to understand what's currently happening, right? And so if we don't know the past, how can we know and understand where to go to, the path to go down in the future? And I sort of give this analogy where, when we have an ailment and we go to the doctor, right? We have a pain and we go to the doctor and we don't know where it's coming from. And we do all these tests and, and the doctor doesn't, there's nothing there that says, what's causing the pain, right? But, until we start to really examine that, we have no idea where to go. And so if we don't know the root cause of some of these things, how do we know a path to go down to heal, right? And when we think about sort of the issues that Health and Human Services, sort of deal with, they deal with having a hard time building relationships with our Indigenous communities. Those folks that work in that institution represent an institution that was responsible for many of the wrongdoings within our communities. So, and most people don't know that, so it's really about, so healing through history is about understanding that history, truly understanding that history so that we understand today, and then perhaps we could figure out solutions on where we need to go to down the future. But if we don't have that past, if we don't understand that past, where do we go? And again, so this is really the importance, and I'm passionate about helping people to understand that. I don't have all the answers, I don't know everything about everything, but this workshop, Healing Through History, is about creating space for people to ask questions. I share it from not an opinion based, like if it was my opinion, it would come, the message would be very, very different, but I share the information. I allow space to, I allow for whatever comes up within people to feel safe enough to be able to feel that and to share that. And there's, some big pieces of vulnerability within that space, because this history is really, really hard history to digest. And it's all of our history. There's no othering in this history. That even though this genocide took place within Indigenous communities, not only within Minnesota, this is all of our history. This is not just something that Indigenous communities have to deal with, have to heal, and I think that's sort of like a misconception out there, is that, oh, that's their stuff. Oh, they just need to do that. Oh, they need to get better. They need to heal. No, this, if you live in Minnesota and if you've had families that have lived here, right, and past generations, that this is all of our history. And we all need to come together and we all need to heal. And so healing through history is sort of what This is all about healing through it. And when we can heal, when we can understand history, we can bring forth those voices of our ancestors and bring healing to them. And that's what it's about for me. So, and so we've got a couple of things, we've got, like I said, we've got historical trauma, and I'll be completely honest with you all, we had, Indian removal policies that were really bad, right? We have broken treaties that were really bad. And, in a lot of these things, we're still dealing with them today. It's not just history, right? These are the things that we are constantly up against on the front lines every day. And then we have boarding school, which, I believe, because I see it and I experience it, doing the work that I do within the communities, is that, Indian removal policies were bad, broken treaties are bad, but the one thing that really took us down as a people was the boarding school era. And that is a part of history that I would say, I've only had about a handful of people in all of my trainings, and I'm speaking specifically non-Native folks, that have been able to tell me what the boarding school era was. Now that's about 5 people that have been able to articulate truly what the boarding school era was and what it did to us. That is not enough. And I've done hundreds of trainings, and I've trained hundreds of people. And to have that minuscule amount be able to articulate truly what the boarding school was, we need to talk about this. We need to share the truth about the history, because in some families, we've had multiple generations go through boarding school, and it completely wiped out the very essence of who we are as Indigenous people, right? How we live, our identity, our culture, our language, our this, everything, the very essence of who we are as Indigenous people, wiped it out. And what was replaced with that, with those really strong practices, what was replaced was a lot of shame, and comes a lot of anger and pain and everything else that comes our way. And so I took this little screenshot. If any of you have seen the Journey to Forgiveness video or have done any of the White Bison trainings, when I really saw this, this little slide here, it just, light bulbs went off, right? And so not only are we dealing with the issues of historical trauma, but now it's morphed into intergenerational trauma. And in those foundational pieces, which used to be ceremony, identity, culture, ceremonies, language, all of that have now been replaced with anger, guilt, shame, and fear, right? So that is sort of what we're dealing with, right? And now we have alcoholism, we have codependency, we have issues with relationships, we have, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, adult children of alcoholics, violence, like all of that sort of is what's now growing, right? And how do we get to, how do we get to a different place? And it's about understanding, it's about understanding that history so we know where to go. Because this is what it looked like before. And again, this is another slide that was taken out of the Journey to Forgiveness. And Lindsay, I will just say, I'm not quite sure what the time is. So if you just want to let me know, just speak up and just let me know that I'm on time or it's time for questions. Just let me know, because I don't know if you can tell. So this is a very, very, I am so passionate about what I do. And I love sharing this information. So again, just going back to this slide, what was there? We had healing, we had spirituality, ceremonies, we had the cultural values, the elders' teachings, right? The grandfather teachings on how to live on this earth, because we were truly given the original principle, laws, and values on how to flourish, right? And it was so deeply rooted in the interconnectedness of everything. And that was sort of what was growing up, right? But now with the historical trauma and intergenerational trauma, sort of those cycles continue today. And we don't have in a lot of families, we don't have this. In a lot of communities, we don't have this, but this is what our healthy, healing forests looked like hundreds of years ago before colonization. So, and yeah, so I love this, this picture. Because when I see this, it's like, it's returning back to who we are. It's about remembering, again, the very essence of who we are as Indigenous people. Remembering that it's in our DNA, it's in our blood. And when we come back to that, we are able to heal quicker. You know, we're able to understand, we're able to connect, and by connecting means everything. When we start to heal, we connect into ourselves. When we start to heal and we connect into ourselves, we can connect into the environment. And we all know where this world is going, right? Mother Earth is screaming out. We've got floods, we've got storms, we've got hurricanes, we've got volcanoes, we've got earthquakes, we've got all this stuff, and she's screaming out and helping, right? She's asking for help, but if we can't connect to ourselves, we can't connect into her. And we can't connect into those plant spirits, and we can't connect into those manidoos out there that sit in all four directions that help us and guide us and direct us. And I love this picture because this to me is the connectedness, that it is about healing, that when we start connect into things, that we can connect into anything, which means the universe overall. And so, yeah, I know that the work that we do is sacred work. The work that you all do is sacred work. I just was having this conversation on the way in. So I'm actually coming to you today from Rapid City, South Dakota. I'm actually in the headquarters of Indian Collective, and I am out here helping to support the healing justice sector for an action camp that they're doing out here, an action camp training that they're doing out here. And, you know, we are all on the front lines of something. And, you know, when I think about sort of the different sections and the different sectors, you know, we have folks here that are on the front lines of like activism. You know, they were on the front lines of Standing Rock. They're on the front lines actively fighting against people and these organizations and these institutions and these corporations that are constantly trying to take, right? And I'll just say take overall because it means many different things. And then there are people here who are about, you know, like media, right? So they really focus on like the media and really, you know, making sure that this information gets across, you know, through media aspect. And then there are people here who are, you know, climbing, right? And really bringing about awareness and how to bring about awareness through that sort of way. And there are many different sections, and the part that I'm supporting again is like healing and really providing a healing space for others. But, you know, could I be on the front lines of the activism part? You know, actively fighting, physically fighting, you know. And I know that I can't do that yet, right? I just don't have it in my character to do that. But with conversations being had, you know, they look at the work that like Susan Bolio and I and sort of the other folks that are on this front line, like they look at us and they're like, you know what, I can't do what you do. How can you do that? You know? Because we are on the front lines of like this healing movement. and really doing the work and integrating and embodying this healing path. And people look at it, oh, I can't do that, I can't do that, you know? And then we have another guy out here too, Bobby Eagle, who is works in Four Winds Treatment Center. And he's on the front lines of that work too. And then I have a sister here, you know, that, you know, what she does is she's on the tribal government side, and her front lines is dealing with the racism and the political aspect of all of that. And, you know, we are all on these front lines fighting, you know, in some sort of way, you know, we're fighting for the goodness of our people. We're fighting because we have a lot of love behind us. And what we all bring into these spaces is some really, really good medicine, sacred medicine, because not anyone can do the work that you do. Not anyone can do the work that I do, or do the activism piece, or, you know, but collectively, we are all coming together, and we're not alone. We're not alone in this fight. We're not alone in these challenges that Indigenous peoples face, you know? And so, yeah, I share that because the work that you all do is sacred, and we all have a purpose and a piece to this bigger picture. And all of you are definitely needed. And I say from the bottom of my heart, Chimigwich to you for doing this work, again, for inviting me on to speak. And, you know, I do many other things too. I do many broken hearts. That has been really powerful for people, and holding space for that. And but yeah, what we all do is so very important. And yeah, Chimigwich to you. Grandfather, Sacred One, teach us love, compassion, and honor, that we may heal the earth and heal each other. Miigwech. And I don't know what time it is, but I don't know if folks have questions. But I just open that space up if you all do.
Yeah, it looks like we have plenty of time, so we're good until 1 o'clock. So if anyone has any comment, there is a comment in the chat from Marissa, and just a shout out. I love the NDN Collective and the work they are doing. Thank you so much for all you do for the people.
Mm-hmm. Miigwech, I appreciate that. Yeah. It's been really interesting being out here. So I mean, there are Indigenous peoples that are coming from literally all over the world for this action camp training. And I've been fortunate to be a part of it. But one of the things that, you know, the leadership of Ending Collective, you know, specifically Nick had shared yesterday, is that you're not alone, you know, that every single one of you are not alone in these challenges, and that we're all in it together. And, you know, I think sometimes this work is really difficult work. And, you know, sometimes we're trying to draw up the energy to continue to do this work. And, you know, again, as I do this work, it's like my schedule is jam-packed. Yeah, I'm going up to Canada First Nations to do mending. I'm going to be a keynote speaker at the end of June. My schedule is just jam-packed, but it's a beautiful problem to have in the sense because, you know, like I said, people are starting to wake up and understand, and they want more. And it's been interesting trying to balance that, and it's a beautiful problem to have. Like and sometimes in this work, it feels alone. You know, you sort of can have those feelings of not doing enough and needing to do more, and really trying to balance that work-life balance. And that can be difficult, and it's easier said than done. So if you're anyone like me, I am working on that every day. So.
I had a question just about the two different, so you do healing through history and then mending broken hearts?
Yeah.
And is the healing through history, is that like, that's the one that is the 8-hour 1-day class?
Yeah.
Okay, and then the mending is like a 3-day.
Yes.
I know we talked about it, but I couldn't remember exactly.
Yeah, so the Healing Through History workshop 1 day, we sort of go over some of the basic information about, like what is tribal sovereignty, what are treaties, how many tribes are there in Minnesota, and again, that's just basic information. A lot of that stuff can be found online, but it's information that is not shared. We talk about the Big Sandy Lake tragedy within that, and like that was something that I just learned about 7 years ago, and that happened in my backyard. So when we start to talk about these things, it can be really powerful, really intense for people, but also like really educational, because there's a lot of politics when it comes to what you see in the media about education and what's being shared and what's being censored, and all of that, and most of the time people come out of Healing Through History, and I will say like mainly the non-natives will come out of that and they can't believe that this information is not shared within the schools, and again, it's a misconception that, this is just our history, and it's not, it's all of our history, and so when we think about trauma, historical trauma and intergenerational trauma are present in every single space that we go into. Every single space that we go into, that is always present. And whether we acknowledge it or not, whether we know how it sort of shows up in our life or not, it is present. And, and maybe you come across it every single day with the work that you all do, but it's really understanding that. And so when we can, when I can share that information, it helps folks to understand how can they do things differently. And it also gives them an understanding as to why it may be difficult to build relationships, and that it's going to take time, and a lot of time for some families, right? But it's been really, really helpful. Mending Broken Hearts is a historical trauma healing workshop. So, and that is for anyone. I love it when I have diverse groups, because even though it's talked about and it's shared through an Indigenous lens, and we go over sort of boarding school and those big foundational history pieces from an Indigenous lens, each day focuses in more on ourselves, and it's not just Indigenous communities that have dealt with trauma or genocide, it's many others, and it really allows us the time to be able to sit and reflect and understand our thoughts. So we have many conversations, conversations that aren't really had within families, even talking about grief and loss. In most of our families, the grief and loss, we don't talk about that. We just are expected to continue to move on, and to continue to live life as though nothing happened. But the two biggest things that will change us forever is love and grief. And, those two things are, we don't really talk about. We don't have those spaces within our families, or the safety within our families to be able to have some of those courageous conversations, and mending brings that out, and we create a safe place for people to feel comfortable to have that, and that's what we need more of for healing to happen, are safe places. So
Thank you. There's a few comments and questions in the chat. I'll just read them out. Laura Bork said, "Miigwech, Briana, I would be interested in your slides that show the forest. I just had a student watch that part of your presentation and he really liked it."
Miigwech. Yeah, I will definitely.
And ask if that could be shared. I feel like, you know, a lot of the work that we do with our patients, I feel like having that as a graphic would be, you know, like just even in the clinic somewhere would be very helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'll just share too, Carrie. So I talked about Bob Eagle. He's out here, and he's the cultural advisor for Four Winds Treatment Center out of Brainerd, and that's the treatment center that Mille Lacs Band owns. A big part of their curriculum there is mending broken hearts, and that's one of the things that clients will say that had the biggest impact on them, because they were able to like really connect the dots on how things sort of flowed out for their family, you know, the way that our parents were parented, you know, sort of how that goes down, how those cycles continues. And those little those graphics really sort of show like those cycles and what our healing forest was, you know, looked like before and sort of what we have now. And we need to get back to that. And how do we do that, you know? So yeah.
It seems like, you know, we a lot of times will recommend, you know, trauma therapy or something for our patients. It seems like it would be really great if there could be like so something like counseling that was very specifically focused on historical trauma and that grief, and that would help people to.
Yeah. Really quickly, do you does anybody at NACC have like a mending broken hearts facilitation? Do you guys do that curriculum there?
I know we have had a Mending Broken Hearts group that's been offered through our behavioral health department. So I'm not sure if that is still happening. But you know, a lot of things changed with COVID.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's definitely a training that can't really be done over Zoom. Yeah.
Yeah. So as things are kind of normalizing, we're trying to figure out, okay, well, what can we get back into now, and what can we start doing as groups and in person with clients and patients and that sort of thing. So you know, the Mending Broken Hearts, I know there have been some other things that some of us have kind of talked about, trying to get some staff certified in being able to facilitate. I know we have some staff right now doing Generation Red Road, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. I will just share, and I'll throw this out to the group too. So our extension grant is going to be doing another certification for mending. So if you have folks here that are interested in becoming a facilitator, it's probably sitting in my email right now, but I've been out, my service has been spotty out at the action camp, but we are trying to figure out a date, and it's going to be in the fall time. So I just will open that up to the space that if you have folks that are wanting to become a facilitator of Mending Broken Hearts, that our grant will be covering that. So, you know, if you have like 1 or 2, maybe even 3 people that are interested, definitely let me know, and we can get you on the list, and I can let you know when that will be scheduled. So, and also if you want to experience it too, I can come in. I'm located actually in Fridley. Well, I live in Fridley. My regional office is in Andover again, but my work is literally all over. But I would be more than willing to do, you know, mending for you to sort of experience that. And yeah.
I'm curious, and I had to pick up my phone and request an Uber for a client, so I might have missed this. I apologize. So did you say that you do a Healing Through History workshop? Do you say that's a 1-day workshop?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah. like an 8-hour
yes
full day kind of thing? Okay.
Yeah. And again, underneath the grant, you know, I can do that, you know, wherever. I've done that for organizations, court administrations, you know, public health. It's just been really helpful for folks that don't have that information. So
yeah, wonderful.
There's another, let's see, Michael Wilson put a link in the chat in case anyone feels compelled to use an activism voice from the healthcare perspective for frontline here. Michael, do you have anything else on that to share with the group, or?
Yeah, this is just an open letter that was created by a group in the Seward neighborhood. Basically, the palatability of the cumulative level of pollution in the East Phillips neighborhood has kind of come to a head, and people are kind of speaking out about it, including over 300 health professionals. So I don't know, given this is a group of health professionals, I feel like it might be relevant to y'all.
Yeah,
Great,
appreciate
thank you. And then Alana has a question. What have been some impactful ways, activities to help increase awareness of trauma and resilience in the work you have done?
I mean, gosh, there's been many, and I think like the mindfulness, right? So, well, number one, I think the education on trauma, right? How it impacts our bodies is really, really important. How it impacts the developing brain. Really being able to get connected back into our bodies. And, you know, we know that when trauma happens, it disconnects us, right? And so, you know, in my slides, I sort of talked about that connection. So, you know, again, a sort of our team members that were together, you know, really brought that talent in and really brought that expertise in. Susan Bolio, she brought a lot of that mindfulness practices. And one of the really cool things about that is she just recently left Extension, but, you know, we're still hearing the impacts of that. She worked with Boys Fort clients that were in their treatment up there and their women's group, and then also with Four Winds. And she is still having people come up to her and say how those mindfulness practices really, really do help. I know for some folks in the community that have been disconnected and disassociate, it's really difficult for us to sort of get connected back into the body, and it's really sort of practicing that. You know, another thing too is like culture is prevention, you know, and any ways that so like really bringing identity to us and really understanding how we can create identity, because again, that was lost. And again, for some families, many generations were lost. So when we can bring in cultural aspects and components to it, like mending, you know, it's really bringing about our medicines, sharing to people that don't be afraid to use your medicines, you know, really being able to talk about those medicines. And some, and maybe you've experienced this too, but I know that going into certain communities, not everybody was brought up the traditional way. So when I do my classes, like I have to really talk through and explain what medicines are used for and how you take care of them. And again, don't be afraid to use them. And really bringing about the safety with that, like the grace and that it's okay to make mistakes, that it's okay not to know, and really bring that forth, because a lot of people are scared. They won't go to ceremonies because of the shame. We have people in our communities that will shame you because you don't know something, you know, and sort of that whole lateral oppression piece that is, you know, I could go down in a whole nother rabbit hole, but people, you have to have the bravery and courage to do some of these cultural pieces, you know, but once you start to do them, you know, it can really, really help you. You know, I know for myself, you know, I didn't use medicines back in the day. And that was actually when I really needed to use them, but I was so afraid. I didn't know, I didn't understand. So it's really bringing about that piece and having empathy and compassion for people. And again, in some of our communities, we don't have that. We have a lot of shame and yeah, and sort of, yeah. One of the things I've been doing in the communities is showing the wisdom of trauma screening. So really, if any of you have seen that film, it's with Dr. Gabor Mate, and he really talks about it's not the actual trauma that happens to us, right? Because a lot of times we're able to survive that, but it's about what happens inside of us after it. And so really bringing those trauma-informed pieces and those education into these spaces. Powerful stuff. We just did a healing conference, and again, it's understanding these educational pieces, understanding what trauma is and how it shows up in our body. I will also say that I've been working with the schools up in Pine County, helping them to connect back into the bodies, doing mindfulness exercises. And these are with kids. These are with like an ALC, right? And you walk into a room and you can physically see their trauma on their bodies. You can walk into a space and just feel it and see it. And so it's about working with that, helping them to build that up so that they have those skills and those tools and those resilient pieces where they can go back to, when life is challenging for them. Gosh, I mean, I could go on and on and on about that piece. That's a great question.
I think we have just a few minutes left if anyone has anything else.
I guess I wanted to mention this as you were speaking about the Minnesota history, because I'm not actually from here, but still it was a surprise to me to hear about, and someone once recommended for me the podcast Little War on the Prairie from the Seeing White series on Seen on Radio. That was kind of a good introduction to for me to Minnesota's history and how we sort of try and hide it from ourselves and look elsewhere.
Yeah. Because that history is hard to hear. And, and for those of you that have seen the Journey to Forgiveness video, Dr. Reyes talks about how we need to have truth. Because without truth, we can't have justice. And without justice, we can't have true reconciliation and healing. And so how do we get there? How do we get there when the entire United States doesn't recognize this part of history? How do we get to justice? Because when we start talking about truth, there has to be a piece of justice. And maybe that justice piece is just recognizing and acknowledging that. But then how do we move forward? But if we don't have truth, we don't have justice. And if we don't have any one of those, we don't have true reconciliation and healing. And I don't even like the word reconciliation, because it's not about reconciling anything. It's more about, for me, it's like transformation. So truth and transformation, like it'll never be the way that it was. But how do we do things differently moving forward to ensure that history doesn't repeat itself, but we see history repeating itself all over, all over the world. We see history repeating itself, but yeah, this part of history is difficult, and it's difficult to digest, and it impacts us all. It's not just Indigenous history, it's all of our history. And we all have it in our blood. We all have it in our DNA in some sort of way, and for me, so I'm Native, right? And I'm also white, right? So I have both. And so I have to stay curious about sort of what's happening inside of me, because I have both in my blood. I have both in my DNA. I have a lot of shame and I have a lot of pride, and it's always going back and forth. So I have to stay back and stay curious a lot of times along my healing journey, so that I don't fall into one space or another, go down one track or another, that I'm always open, that I'm always curious, that I'm always learning and understanding. So, yeah.
I just want to say thank you too. Like the first time we met, you were I could just feel your compassion and your empathy in it. You were like, hey, here's my phone number. Call me anytime if you need anything. And it was like, it felt really real. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. The one thing that I'll just share really quickly, and I know for maybe some of you, it may be a taboo topic, but the other thing that I just want to talk about, just for 1 minute, is, and I don't know if anybody in this space has done any work or is doing any information gathering about the use of plant medicines and psychedelics to help heal the mind. I shared that because that is, after doing this work for so long and really seeing the multi-level traumas and grief and loss, and in some of our communities we're experiencing one death after another, and the world that we live in doesn't allow for healing to happen. In most organizations we get 3 days to grieve. 3 days to grieve, to do whatever you need to do, to come back to work and expect nothing is to ever change, or that nothing is ever going to be changed, that you are expected to come back, do your work as though nothing changes, right? And that's not the case. And so, like I said, like we have in a lot of our communities, in my experience, multi amounts of trauma and tragedies have happened within our communities. And when I think about the research that's coming out, and my own experience too with plant medicines, it allows us to get to these spaces of healing a lot quicker. And so I share that because that is the work that I do outside of, the work with Extension that I'm doing, so that I can help move this work forward and move this this way of healing forward. Because what I see is that, we can talk and talk and talk and talk and talk and talk and talk, and don't get me wrong, I mention therapy to everyone. I do it myself, and I found some really, really beneficial things from it. And it hasn't allowed me to get to those experiences, any quicker. Plant medicines and the use of psychedelics have really helped me to get to those spaces a lot quicker. Those experiences allowed me to help process, learn, grow, and heal and understand a lot quicker. And so I just throw that out there. If anybody is going down that road of understanding how those ways of healing, how those tools can help us, definitely reach out. I would love to be able to talk with you and make connections in any way that you see fit, and sort of gathering the group, gathering a group of like-minded folks together, because it's my hope that, we can bring these medicines into our communities in a good way, in a very cultural, spiritual way to help heal our relatives, because we don't have to struggle and we don't have to suffer. And those medicines allow us to go down a path of healing a lot quicker. So, yeah.
Hey, thank you, Briana. I want to just thank you so much, Chimigwich, for presenting today. I think your final comments here are really important. I think one of the challenges that we have writ large in tribal communities around specifically the condition we're talking about here, but also in many of our health inequities, is there's only so much that Western medicine can do for us as tribal people. And that's because a lot of our healing through our medicines and our ceremonies were done collectively, right? They were done, we would have large ceremonies and we do land-based healing out on the land as groups in large and small family systems and as nations. And there's limitations for us being able to do that in the context of Western healthcare structures, right? So I'm happy to talk more about that, because I think that that's one of the things that we're trying to do here, which is like, bring these two things together, because it's clear to us, like, over several decades, that doing what we've been doing historically and just Western medical delivery of healthcare isn't something that's necessarily getting to the core of that issue. And some of those things, most of the things that we suffer from in our community, we need to provide them both sources of healing. And so really excited to talk with you about that. I'm really interested specifically in land-based healing. Like, I think that one of the things we haven't thought a lot about or demonstrated our work through demonstration projects is like what happens when we sort of like couple what we typically do along with, you know, addressing that first initial sort of historical trauma and that severing between the relationship with us and the earth and our tribal land, our understanding of our relationship to our earth and our mother. And I think those are things that we still have some time to sort of try to figure out.
Yeah.
I think both things have to happen. Probably.
Yeah.
We do walk in two worlds, right? So that's kind of like the unique thing about us.
Yeah, absolutely. And how do we do both together? And I think there are, you know, ways we can do that. And I also think too, you know, Western medicine, the Western ways of thinking and healing is not enough. And I will also share, and I will also sort of go on a limb that our ceremonies and, you know, some of those ceremonial practices, they're also not enough, because if all of it was enough, we wouldn't be having the overdose deaths in our communities. We wouldn't having the tragedies within our communities over and over and over. And, you know, these tools that are being put forth, you know, could definitely be help us to propel down that path of healing and allow us to connect a lot quicker, you know. So yeah. And Anthony, I was we'll have to connect offline, but I wanted to share that you were on a video that I had saw like 6 years ago, and it is a big part of my healing journey. So I'll have to share that another time. So yeah.
Sure. Well, I'm here. You can reach me here anytime.
Yes, for sure.
Okay. Take care.
Yes.
Thank you so much for your work.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Everybody have a great day.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.